Yeah, unmuted. We are good to go.
Perfect. Whenever you're ready. All right. It's my great pleasure to introduce Hassan Al-Razi, who recently started his PhD in my lab. Hassan signed up for a very exciting PhD project that involves fieldwork on chimpanzees in Rwanda. We had a little bit of a setback with our project in Rwanda because of COVID and everything. But I think now we are back in business, and Hassan is getting ready for a one-year stint in Rwanda, so he's expected to start his fieldwork in January. And he's going to tell us everything about his project today. So, welcome, Hassan.
Thank you. I'm Hassan, and I'm a PhD student here. And for my PhD thesis, I am planning to work on the behavioral thermoregulation of a chimpanzee population which is living in a very high altitude in Rwanda. And as
Just because you just click like that. Now it should go.
As I will work on behavioral thermoregulation, so at first I want to discuss a bit about the relationship between our living organism and the temperature. We all know that all animal life is affected by many biotic and abiotic factors. And environmental temperature is one of the major abiotic factors that can affect the physiology, evolution, and ecology, even the geographical distribution of living organism. And it is very crucial to maintain core body temperature of animal to survive in their environment. And if we think about mammal, they can live in the polar region where the temperature is very low, or in the desert. Wherever they live, they have to maintain their core body temperature between 27 to 45 degrees Celsius, because above 45 degrees Celsius, it can cause fatal brain injury, and below 27 degrees Celsius can cause cardiac failure and various type of respiratory problem. And we know that depending on their environment where an animal live, every animal has their own body structure, like the unique anatomy and physiology to maintain their core body temperature. But we know every environment is dynamic, it can change. And despite having a unique body temperature, every animal needs to maintain their core body temperature in an optimal level. And the process by which animals do this, that is the thermoregulation. And this thermoregulation helps an animal to keep their body function working properly. It helps to prevent damage their body cell and to conserve energy. And depending on the strategy mechanism, thermoregulation is two types. One is physiological thermoregulation, another is behavioral. That means physiological means different type of physiological function that help to maintain the body temperature, and the different type of behavior those helps to maintain the body temperature of animal, that is behavioral thermoregulation. And as I will work on the behavioral thermoregulation, so I will discuss about behavioral thermoregulation. And here are some common behavioral thermoregulation regulations like basking, sex shaking, burrowing, hurdling, nesting. And among these, basking and sex shaking is also common for humans. And as I will work on chimpanzees, that is a primate, so I will discuss about the thermoregulation in primate. We know most of the primates live in the tropical and subtropical region, mainly in the forest, and the tropical and subtropical forests are very thermally dynamic. And despite being exposed to a thermally dynamic environment, every primate species need to maintain their optimal body temperature. And for that, primate use both physiological and behavioral thermoregulation. And the thermoregulation of primate is comparatively well studied in the lab, but we know very little about the thermoregulation of primate in nature. And primates, in broad aspect, primates use all kinds of non-behavioral thermoregulation like hurdling, grooming, basking, swimming, set shaking, different type of body posture, and most interesting is nesting. And above all, every primate changes their daily activity to maintain their core body temperature in an optimal level. As I said, nesting is an interesting behavior because we can see nesting behavior only in the basal and the top primates. Basal means the prosimians, but the prosimians use their nest to keep their offspring safe inside their nest. But the purpose of nest building in great apes are totally different. They use their nest for sleeping or resting. That's why these nests are known as sleeping platform or bed. And it is a very unique behavior for chimpanzees, the greatest, that means chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutan, and bonobos. And most interesting thing is great apes don't reuse their nest. They use their nest for a single time. And there are several hypotheses on the function of great ape nest, like comfort, anti-predation, anti-pathogen, and most interestingly, the thermoregulation. And now the question is why I have chosen to work on chimpanzees. Because chimpanzees is our closest relative and a very important basis to test different types of hypotheses about the origin and evolution of human behavior and human society. And by studying the chimpanzees, we may learn how early human and hominids develop their survival strategies when they move to the marginal environment. And we know chimpanzees are endangered animal, and there are total four subspecies of chimpanzees. And among these, I will work on the eastern chimpanzee, that is Pantoglodytes suntuti. And now the behavioral thermoregulation of chimpanzee. Only a handful of studies done on the behavioral thermoregulation of chimpanzees. And this, Monica worked on the influence of temperature on the rising behavior, and she found male chimpanzee travel long distance at a higher speed in warmer days than the cooler days. And interestingly, she didn't find such kind of relationship for the female chimpanzees. And Takamoto studies the impact of seasonal change on the terrestriality in relation to the microclimate. He also found a positive correlation between the daily percentage of terrestrial behavior and the maximum temperature. And Valerie and Christian also studied the influence of temperature on the activity budget, terrestriality, and posture. They also found a positive correlation between temperature and sun portraiting, and they also suggest this terrestrial use of use of ground as a behavior of thermoregulation, that is a thermoregulative behavior. And these are the non-nesting behavioral thermoregulation work, and all other works have been done on the behavioral thermoregulation, and they focus on nesting. And according to Stewart, chimpanzee nests provide the sleeping chimpanzee with isolation against insulation against the environment. And Cope et al. 2012 tried to test all the hypotheses on chimpanzee nesting and found support for the thermoregulation hypothesis. And Stewart also worked on the Savanna chimpanzee, and she found Savanna chimpanzee built thicker nests in cooler condition and used more some broken branches and support in the moisture condition. And these are the behavioral thermoregulatory work on chimpanzee. And why I have chosen this work, that means the behavioral thermoregulation of chimpanzee, because chimpanzee is spent around 50% of the life in the nest, but we know very little about their night nesting behavior and nocturnal activity. And also, we know very little about the behavioral thermoregulation of the chimpanzee in cooler condition, because most of the previous studies done on the chimpanzees living in hot condition and in lower or middle elevation level. And we will conduct this study in the chimpanzee population living Nyungwe National Park, which is the temperature, where the temperature is low and the chimpanzee range up to 3,000 meters from the sea level, which is the highest known elevation level for the chimpanzees. And as I said, Nyungwe National Park is a cool, well-watered tropical forest and cover more than 1,000 square kilometers. And in Nyungwe National Park, we will work on the Mayabe chimpanzee community, which is habituated with human and consists of 67 individuals. And my supervisor, Cyril, and collaborators have been working on this community since 2016. And we will work to know know the answer of three research questions. First one is, what kind of behavioral strategies do molten chimpanzees use during their activity period to cope up with the environmental temperature change? Does ambient temperature have any influence on the nesting site selection? Do overnight weather conditions affect nest architecture? And each question, we have few hypotheses. And for the question one, we predict that the chimpanzee will be less active in cooler weather than during being condition. The chimpanzee use higher strata in lower temperature, and the chimpanzee will spend more time in sunny microhabitat when the temperature is low, when the difference between the temperature in sun and the shade is greater, and after the cooler night. And the chimpanzee will adopt a calm posture when the temperature will be low. For the research question two, we assume that the chimpanzee will establish their night nest in those places where the temperature is comparatively low and the wind speed is comparatively high and the wind speed is low. For the third question, we assume the chimpanzee will build thicker, deeper nests with more lining and mattress material during cold nights, and comparing to the other previous work done on the savanna chimpanzees in hot wave environment. And now the method. We will collect all the data directly from the field, and that's for that I will spend entire year in the field, and we will divide the entire data collection procedure in three different parts: behavioral data collection, nesting site selection, nest architecture, and installation test. And for collecting the behavioral data, I will follow the focal chimpanzee community from the dawn to dusk, and by using instantaneous scan sampling with 50 minutes interval, I will record the behavior of chimpanzees. And to record the behavior, I will classify the behavior of the chimpanzees as feeding, traveling, resting, grooming, herding, and others like population, nursing, etc. And we will also collect the data on the different posture like curl, sitting, lying, and stress, and some others. And then the microclimate use, we will collect the data on where the chimpanzee will found, like in ground or in the tree, in the sun or in the shade. In the slope of the hill where we will found the chimpanzees, that slope is facing the sun or away from the sun. And we will also record the humidity, temperature, and wind speed of the place where we will find the chimpanzee. And now the nocturnal behavioral data collection. Besides the diurnal behavioral data, we will also collect the nocturnal behavioral data by using focal animal sampling. And by using that, we will continuously collect data for 15 minutes with 10-minute break each hour. And we will, by using a thermal monocular, we will see the time spent. That means when they were active or when they're not, when they're inactive, and the posture of their sleeping. And we will try to collect data on at least at least for 2 nights every month, and each night we will focus on only one individual. And nesting site selection, for collecting data on nesting site selection, we will collect data on the microclimate, and we will start collecting data on nesting site selection when we will see the nest building attempt. Then we will deploy humidity, temperature, rainfall, wind speed data logger within the nesting site, and we will define the nesting site as 10 into 10 meter area with a nesting tree as the center point. And we also collect non-nesting plot for as the control plot at least 200 meter away from the nesting plot. And the same method, same equipment will be used in the nesting and non-nesting site. And then we will take the data on the nest position. For that, we will measure the height of the nest from the ground, position of the nest in the ground, the perpendicular distance of the nest from the main trunk, and we will also take the data on the elevation of the nesting place by using a handheld GPS device. And then the data on nesting tree is, at first, we will identify the nesting tree species. Then we will measure the DVAs, that means the diameter at breast height. Then we will measure the height of the tree, the height of the lowest branch of the tree, and the height of the crown. And finally, we will try to see the tree species richness. And for that, we will identify the nesting tree species from the literature and from our direct observation. And then we will count all trees which have more than 5 centimeter DBH within the nesting and the control plot. Then we will compare the richness of the nesting tree between the nesting and non-nesting plot by using Shannon Diversity Index. And then the nest architecture, we will collect the data, nesting data only from the fresh nest, and for that we will climb the tree by taking proper climbing safety measure, and we will collect the data without manipulating the nest. We will measure the length, width, depth, and thickness of the nest by using either a measuring tape or a measuring stick. And then we will bring the nest very carefully on the ground and dismantle the nest branch by branch to collect the data on the nesting material, like using tree, liana, or sod, species of the flora, and the number of the nest material manipulation. And finally, we will count the number of lining steps, mattress, and support steps. And the final step is the nest insulation test. And for that, at first, we will prepare artificial nest by mimicking the nest of the natural nest architecture. And then we will use a very simple principle, that is the principle of heat loss from a standard object. And as a standard object, we will use two hot water bottles filled with hot water, and we will put a small temperature data logger inside both bottle, and that logger will record temperature every 40 minutes. And then we will keep one bottle inside the nest and another bottle outside the nest, and the rate of the drop in temperature within the bottle will be used as a surrogate heat loss index. And internally, we will use a generalized linear mixed model for nesting site selection and the principal component analysis, or PCA, for the nest architecture. And outcome and impact, we believe this work will be a significant contribution to biological anthropology and primatology, and generate a novel insight into primate or human evolution. And this study will provide new insight into the behavioral ecology of the chimpanzee in Nyungwe National Park. And finally, this finding will also be incorporated into the development of the site management of the national management plan of the national park. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take over from here. Do we have some questions? Sorry, Katie. Go for it.
Thanks, Hassan. That was so interesting. I just have a question about, I guess, age and sex differences. Are you taking those into account with of your chimpanzees? Are they a diverse age group? Are they diverse sexes? And does that impact on the range?
Yeah, we will classify the individual chimpanzees depending on their sex as adult male, adult female, sub-adult male, sub-adult female, juvenile, and infant. We will do. Because maybe we will get some difference between this as well. Good.
I'll start with my kind of widest scale one, which indicates I have others as well. In terms of looking at your nocturnal behavior, the nocturnal behavior is really important, I think, to the concepts that you're dealing with. But if you do 2 nights per month for 12 months, and you're going to look at 1 animal per night, that gives you a sample size of 24. So what I'm wondering is, given that chimpanzees are largely crepuscular diurnal, and you're going to be, and they nest fairly close to each other, why only 1 animal per night when they're not going to be moving around a lot?
Yes, actually, it's our initial plan. For that, we have to discuss with the park authority to take the permission. And yes, of course, we can take more data, the data on more individual. But as we will use the focal animal sampling, so that's why we have to focus on one.
Because you're telling me that you have to focus on one because of the methodology you're using. And I'm asking you, why are you not using a different methodology so that you can incorporate more animals?
The visibility is a problem because we will use thermal monocular.
Yeah.
So if we get any obstacle just in front of us, we will not be able to observe the animals. So
right.
If I set a place, maybe I will be able to observe clearly only one individual, other will be just being the obstacle. So it will not be possible to observe more than one animal.
The only thing I would say is I think you should try.
Yeah, of course.
Because you're going to have a whole lot of data, points, but only on 24 individuals on 24 nights. So the number of variables relative to the actual number of samples is going to be problematic, I think. Can I ask one more, as long as I'm here? When they're related. They have to do about your understanding of nest architecture and function. You have the height of the crown and you have the lowest branch and you have the DBH. Does that give you enough to distinguish when you've got a windbreak, when there's sufficient density that the actual environmental insult that's being buffered is wind? I don't quite see how you get density of foliage for a buffering effect of wind from the measures that you're taking.
Actually, from the previous literature on